like what's in my head looks awesome to me. But what I'm more excited to see is what it looks like after it's passed through several hands. Like when I write up a character, and even if I'm writing artist briefs and I'm saying, oh, they have to wear a hat and they carry a baseball bat or whatever, like they seeing what the artist comes back to me, like that moment is just pure magic to me. It's and it never looks like exactly like the thing that was in my head, but like yeah, I think the thing I love so much is that it is a shared vision.
Welcome to the Summoning Hour, a podcast about everything game development. I'm your host, Joe Belousek. Today's guest is published author and game designer Joey Kalitovic. His work spans narrative, character, gameplay and combat design, Xbox cloud gaming touch controls, solo projects, game jams, and collaborative mods. We talk about why game development is a team sport, what solo projects can and cannot prove, why having trust across disciplines creates better games, and why having the curiosity and willingness to pivot may matter more than one perfect idea. Let's get into it.
Welcome anyone and everyone who's possibly listening on the recorded version of this episode. We are doing this live from a Riverside production studio, and we are welcoming guests in. So if you happen to find our LinkedIn link, you'll be able to join in, listen to us live, and I'll be able to promote you as a radio guest or radio-like guest to either be on stream with a camera, ask your question, be part of the conversation. Otherwise, it's another episode of the Summoning Hour podcast. And this week, I'm joined by Joey Kalitovic.
That was close. That was better than most people.
Yeah. I feel like we have similar last name troubles. I get a lot of Belovchek or Belovsek. Even though there's no V.
I was gonna say they're making the U a V. Maybe somewhere they do that.
The name is Czech in nature, so I imagine a lot of people are like, is that a Shek at the end? I don't know, but yeah, it's complicated apparently. So names are difficult.
I know. I'm sure mine was Kalitovic at some point in history and morphed.
Right. So I saw that you are a published author, game designer, and you have a number of credits to your name, and just you've rolled through a number of different studios. So why don't you give us the 10,000 foot, 5,000 foot view of your career at this point, and then we will just jump into game design as a whole to just break down and go for it.
Cool. Yeah, I've been in the video game industry for about 12 years now. My first creative role was as a narrative designer, but I pretty quickly branched into other aspects of game design. Sort of, I like sticking my nose wherever it's welcome. So that has done well for me so far. I was able to learn a lot, pick up a lot of things, and find other things that I'm more passionate about. Most of my career has been, whether my title was game designer, narrative, gameplay, combat, it's been around designing characters, both player characters and enemies, and how they interact. And I think my favorite version of that was while I was at Perfect Day most recently. I got to design between two games over 100 playable characters and enemies. I think for one hero collector it was over 70 playable heroes.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's probably backstory,
Yeah.
ability kits, and acquisition rates.
Yep.
Methods,
And I worked
everything.
with other designers and narrative designers and stuff too. So some characters there was already a concept for. Most of them I did from concept to release. But yeah, I got to do a whole bunch of it. And then sort of my a little bit more of my like standout experience from that was working at Xbox. I did not do any character stuff. I designed touch controls for Xbox games on the Xbox Cloud platform, which was a ton of fun. I got to work with a bunch of different studios and touch some of my favorite video game series so far. So
I mean, I see all the Zelda gear behind you, so I can imagine just what your inspiration it was for a lot of your characters, and just kind of that grounding in of each character is a puzzle, each character is a piece of a bigger coherent design. So I can imagine that's where you took your inspiration from, or where you uh, got into that idea of character design. Is that where you started, like just as like a kid or a student just wanting to get into making like another Zelda game, or just was that what really inspired you to go the character and narrative route?
yeah, it was Zelda, but it wasn't in a way I think a lot of people would expect. I have an identical twin brother. Um, and so we grew up we had an NES, Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2 were like our favorite games, and of course followed the series all the way up through all of the systems. And there weren't a lot of multiplayer games in general, but until Four Swords there were no multiplayer Zelda games, and it was our favorite series. And so we started coming up with creative ways to consider games multiplayer. We would say, okay, we're gonna divide the mechanics. And so like this is like elementary school kids, and we're like analyzing the mechanics, and we're saying, okay, so like you can use, like I would take some of the mechanics and he would take some, and then we would play the game trading off the controller, only using those. And that also created an interesting restriction to how we're playing. And so we had to solve puzzles sometimes in different ways. So yeah, I think that made me a game designer in general. But
Yeah.
then that, especially like then we put names to those characters with those, hodgepodge abilities from whatever games we were playing. And we just kind of started, for the longest time we said we were going to make an MMO or something, because we just kept coming up with characters and we're like, what are we going to do with all of these characters?
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah.
I remember like my brother and I, we would do Mega Man villains and Mega Man levels, and we had the Nintendo Power magazines, and so they would walk you
Yep.
through all the levels and everything. I'm like, oh, well, we could do that, and we broke out the graph paper and we were doing that. Or I think one of the biggest collaborative efforts that we had, and I dare anyone to pick up this game and try to beat it within a reasonable amount of time. The Tiny Toons Adventure platforming game was ridiculously hard. And the final dungeon had you have to go through different doors in a specific sequence. Otherwise, it would do like the classic Zelda, put you in a repeating pattern or take you back to the beginning and you didn't know it. And so putting together that sequence while being timed, it's like Ninja Turtles 1 kind of flashbacks in the underwater dam level.
Hmm.
Like, so I'm right there with you, designing Mega Man characters, coming up with powers, levels, all of that stuff. So I get where you're coming from, and I love the fact that you were doing that with your brother too. Is he in games?
We keep joking that I'm dragging him kicking and screaming into the video game industry. He's a professional massage therapist, but he is also now a senior game designer on a Baldur's Gate 3 mod called Path to Menzo Branson. Like they have around 300 people working on this massive mod, so it's pretty cool. He is uh, running a lot of the like companion character design stuff. So
It's incredible.
we're
So
still twin brained wherever we
yeah,
go.
are you joining him on that mod?
Yeah, I'm a senior gameplay UX designer. I joined while I was still employed, and I was like, okay, I can put a little bit of time to this. And the one of the rules that they had open was that, and it seemed interesting. It's really like being a player advocate for the player experience, looking over all of the gameplay designs, level designs, and characters, and giving feedback and risk analysis on uh, how those are looking.
Kind of a technical playtester at this
Yeah, kind
point.
of. I mean, it's not. I'm looking at them in spreadsheets and doing all of that, but yeah. I'm imagining the play.
Absolutely. I mean, you got Baldur's Gate as your backdrop, so you can
Hmm.
already kind of slot these things in. And I mean, I have to imagine that those tools for modding are already accessible enough to where you could be kind of plugging and playing these kind of white box versions of certain mobs, whether they have temporary art or are they just like, oh, we know that this is a bugbear type. Okay, toss it in. Like, here's a similar monster caricature.
Hmm.
Uh, or abilities even just kind of plug it and play and like does that give you any flexibility or is that are you really just going off of the design documents and just playing it out in your head and giving initial kind of design framework kind of feedback to the team?
Yeah, so far it's the latter. I could see it growing into something more, and I probably would. So I was recently laid off, and I would probably be diving deeper into that. But the ASGC Game Jam just started. I don't know if you've heard of that. Um, okay, yeah, ASGC is um, a game community. It's always supporting games community. I don't know if you know who Amir is. He's posted a lot on LinkedIn. Yeah, he started this out of just like the pure goodness of his heart, just helping people find work in games. It's amazing. And now people in the community have put together this game jam, and I'm a senior or sorry, a deputy lead designer on that. And so I've been on it for a little over a month, and we just Monday started onboarding all of the ICs, and it has been uh, chaos, but good chaos. A lot of really excited people with a lot of really good ideas, and soon we get to
so
make
you're
something. Huh?
so you're leading the design team.
No, so there's I don't remember the exact number. There's maybe like 12 deputy design leads, um, and we currently have, and then there's one game director above all of us, and so I guess we're middle management, but we're each owning features. So I have two features that I'm owning. I'm currently writing design docs up for, and then once we get those done, then we'll start organizing more with all the others, assigning tasks, and it's a 6 month game jam. So I'm sure we'll have cool stuff soon, but lots of time still for iteration and polish.
Yeah, have you done game jams before?
Yeah, I was really lucky with my first one. I did a global game jam in 2021, just a month or two before my son was born, and uh, and I just joined a group of people I'd never met. I went into Seattle Indies Discord and just said, "Hey, I'm a narrative designer looking to join a team. I just want to write stuff," and uh, ended up being an awesome group of people. We all pitched ideas. We ended up going with my core storyline and setting matched up with someone else's core gameplay mechanics. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience. It's on my itch.io, Zip and Xander. It's a puzzle resource management game.
Nice. Send me after the show. Send me a link, and I'll make sure that it goes into the show notes.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, and then
Yeah, of
we
course.
did a goofy one. You don't have to put this one in, but this some of the people from that group, we did another one. I'm sure you've heard of Game Maker's Toolkit. But we did Game Breaker's Toolkit, where you make a bad game on purpose, and it's been compared to those Super Nintendo platformers on difficulty. It's I like what the actress and I did with the only like there's just a stream of dialogue and written text, and it's meant to throw you off, so be careful if you play it.
So the so you actually started using the design elements to just mislead players as bad game design.
Yep.
Brilliant. It's like what is it? Trees hate you, and I want to be the guy. Just bad game design.
Um, Sorry, is that a game? Trees Hate You?
Yeah, yeah. Trees hate.
I
Oh,
didn't know
okay.
it.
That one's hilarious.
Yeah,
So check it out when you get a chance. That one's just pure comedy.
nice.
It's very similar to I Want to Be the Guy and just like the coconuts falling up at you kind of thing and just, like, sheer chaos. Now, like it's being a player advocate and kind of getting towards that playtesting and thinking about what this feels like to playtest and knowing that your background in uh, accessibility with the Game Pass or the cloud gaming Xbox, what did you learn in that process of accessibility and being able to go test that technology, being that it's connecting to like smart TVs now that there's the app outside of, and it's just being played on a whole bunch of different devices. So I imagine you had to come up with standards along the way because it wasn't really being done before. I know Luna had launched from Google, but it wasn't, or Amazon. Yeah, Amazon. So it wasn't like widely adopted. So you were still kind of breaking new ground. What was that like on that end of things?
Yeah, it was really eye-opening. In a lot of ways, I knew like some places had touch control kind of games that you could play, but yeah, we had really uh good standards, especially because most of those places just had one set of touch controls that you could use for every single game you played. And our big difference was that we made the touch controls for each individual game. So when you load up another game, the touch controls are mapped to whatever makes the most sense for that game. But yeah, we had to have standards because that can get really hairy, and familiarity is also super important. Players, you don't want players guessing, oh, the A button's all the way up in the, you know, the middle middle right instead of down near the bottom. But B is down towards the bottom. And so we tried to keep things familiar. We tried anywhere that we could. We used either well, we called the ergo diamond, or then we had an inverted ergo diamond, which the diamond is just the like A B X Y, and then for the ergonomic touch, uh, we look at like where your thumbs glide, just moving side to side, and so like if A is here, Y is here instead of being straight up above it,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And yeah, it was really cool to learn. And then it was also sort of in talking about accessibility, but also just like the ability for reach to players was really cool. We would get like fan mail essentially in from people from other countries who are like, I could have never played Assassin's Creed in my life. Like I could only watch videos of it, but now, thanks to these touch controls, I can play through the whole game. And yeah, because they can have a
Whoa.
smartphone but not an Xbox, or a controller.
Okay, so it was really bridging the gap with device and hardware.
Hmm.
And I always, I mean, I don't know why, but I had always just thought, okay, Game Pass, you have an Xbox,
Yeah.
and or like then they added the Game Pass for PC. Okay, you have a PC or Xbox, and I mean, I really hadn't thought of not owning either one of those before, but having had a cell phone
Hmm.
that is that is a much wider reach for player base. Now, to me, the marketing plan Xbox, this device can be an Xbox. All devices are an Xbox. I thought that marketing thing made sense, but it left a lot of bad taste in people's
Hmm.
mouths. Like, then nothing is an Xbox, and what are you trying to sell me other than a service which I guess it kind of got caught up in the Netflix and all the other subscription models that are out there. That's really interesting that people were that much more appreciative of that, which
Hmm.
then kind of speaks towards that switch that Xbox is doing for that more exclusive titles again. Okay,
Hmm.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
that would be. Um, I'm certainly not here to sell anyone on subscriptions or not subscriptions, but I know for me as a parent, I love having Game Pass because I mean, one might I don't I do have rules with my kid. I'm like, you can't jump between 20 games in a day. Like you got to have like some core games that you're focused on. like grow skills with your gaming and like really feel something out before you decide you don't like it. But still, like he plays a lot of short games, of course, and then also I don't have the time to like replay a game 100 times to look for all the different things like I used to when I was a kid. And so having access, I can like go beat a game and then get a new experience. Um, Even if it's a little more shallow. Uh, someday I'll play.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm right there with you on the Game Pass. Like, now they just need to actually come through with the Game Pass Family Pass so that
Mm-hmm.
my kids are teenagers now, and my partner will play games with us, and so it's
Yeah, same.
all four of, but it's sign into my account to get into the Game Pass because it's all through me. And some games kind of allow you to install, but then play on a different account and switch it up. But others are a lot more restrictive about that kind of behavior and switching things out. So, come on, Xbox, give me a family Game
I
Pass.
know I can't believe Nintendo actually got rid of the console sharing completely. I that's a downfall for me with Nintendo. Like I'm buying less Nintendo games. I bought games that I had previously bought games on Nintendo and I was going to buy the expansion for the game and I just rebought the game on Xbox because of that. And so like I don't know, I hope they realize that they're losing money for that. But Xbox, you can do like we have two Xbox. Me and my wife have been gamers long before we had a kid, and so the two TVs, two of each console, and yeah, please Sony and Microsoft don't take this away, but and we use each other's home consoles so that we can play all of our games together, and yeah, have the one, well, yeah, have the one subscription, sometimes multiple subscriptions across consoles and stuff. But even that, like I'll play on my PC, and so if I play on the PC, I could play with my kid and my wife if we had the family Game Pass. So that would be awesome.
Right? Like, I'll buy the extra $5 subscription,
Hmm.
$10 subscription fee. Just allow more devices in the family setting and share that amongst three, four other accounts. I mean, Spotify does it.
Hmm.
Why not do it with the Game Pass, please? I'm still begging for it.
Would be awesome.
That's enough of me begging.
Yeah,
But
yeah. We'll send this to Microsoft afterwards.
we're making the difference right here. That's just us, our conversation. It's that final 30% ticker for profitability to say it's worth it. So you're doing game passes, you're figuring out what's next for you. Have you thought of going the indie route, getting more involved with the modding teams, or jumping into either Game Maker or Godot and just saying, you know what, I'm at it for me. Let's make a game.
Yeah, I've every time I end up in laid off in a job search, I always think like, is this the moment where I go make like my game? And I think the problem with that, and I actually just I'll get in, I can't get too far into this, but I'll say a little more on it after. But I just joined a startup called Heretic, and uh, that's what I would rather do. But so the reasoning is making my own game is, I mean, maybe I get lucky and the game sells millions and I just become rich and then start a studio and make whatever I want after that. But odds are pretty low of that. And from now, I would love if anybody, watches this and disagrees, I'd love to hear their take, especially from a recruiter. But uh, the thing that I've seen is that as far as like getting my next job after I've created whatever that, my solo project is or whatever, they're much more interested in seeing how well you work with others. And that's so doing game jams is better than, in my opinion, than working on a solo project. And I've known solo game developers who have never gotten a job in the industry. And I think that's part of why is because they say, oh, look at all the things that I can do by myself. And there's no teamwork shown there, no collaboration. And video game development, I think, is one of the most collaborative things that you can do.
Absolutely, I can't disagree. As a producer, I've brought in multiple different disciplines, and sometimes that UX designer is the lead. Sometimes the artist has the idea, and they're given the product owner position, and they're making design decisions. So, and when you get those different voices being in the lead, your product and your content is vastly different, and you have to learn how to work with those people and in those confines, because ultimately, yeah, some studios will cookie cutter everything. The designer is always the lead and the main voice and the main customer, but you still have usually a dedicated QA person, a dedicated engineer, a dedicated artist, and then whoever else is in the mix. Maybe you have three artists, three designers, whatever it looks like. You usually have a pretty stable core, and you still have to work with them. And every studio's got its own culture, its own history, its own priorities, and you don't know what that mix and what that culture is going to do to that team. So everyone's going to end up having those compromises. So I can't agree with you more about that idea that this is the most collaborative kind of project management that you could have. Even in the time that I got my PMP, I learned more about traditional project management, where they build it out because they've done it before. They know the plan from the beginning, and they're just getting their resources in line to say, ready, set, go, everyone go, because we already know how this goes. Games has never been a here's your template, ready, set, go, because there's so much inspiration in that moment. It can't be anything but collaborative.
Yeah, and I've had people say, but don't you want to make your idea and it just gets to be your vision. And I think even that like working on team, even like I've gotten to be a lead designer on a small indie project before, and uh I owned narrative and gameplay for the last year at Perfect Day before the layoff. And I the way I always think of it is like what's in my head looks awesome to me. But what I'm more excited to see is what it looks like after it's passed through several hands. Like when I write up a character, and even if I'm writing artist briefs and I'm saying, oh, they have to wear a hat and they carry a baseball bat or whatever, like they seeing what the artist comes back to me, like that moment is just pure magic to me. It's and it never looks like exactly like the thing that was in my head, but like yes, I think the thing I love so much is that it is a shared vision.
I mean, it's exactly that. You can have your own image in your head. You can write down as many details as you want in that document when you hand it off. And that artist is still going to put in details that you never thought about, because they know what you say put on overalls, and they're going to put in the overalls, and then maybe that button that holds it together is like a giant skull or something, and it just fits the tone, and you're like, I would never have thought about that. It was just would have been a button, and it just looks like that. And those moments are hugely important in creating that real game feel, and that those bringing characters to life. It has to be grounded in that character's reality, and you don't get into that by doing that yourself.
Mm. And I think the more parts of different people that are in something, the more relatable it's going to be to more people.
It reminds me of a story my partner told me. She's a writer, and she told me she wrote a character about someone who was smoking and they forgot their lighter, and she was in a peer review group, and my partner doesn't smoke, but the other people, they did, and they're like, that's not believable at all. If you're a smoker, you do not forget your lighter. Maybe it runs out, maybe it doesn't work suddenly, but you don't ever forget your lighter. I'm like, that is.
Hmm. That's also when I've met people who like want to be the solo artist or designer or something or writer on a team with, they just want to work cross discipline. They don't want to work with anyone else on like their discipline too. And I still like, I mean, and this easily comes from having an identical twin brother with similar mindset, but I would so much rather work with somebody, spitball, share ideas, and come up, just come up with something together. And again, you with I get less perspective from my twin brother because we have a lot of shared experiences. So even more so with other people, yeah, people are gonna come at me with like, "Whoa, I would never do that," and I am the kind of person that you're writing. So like, here's a way that you can change that. So helpful.
Now, okay, so counterpoint, if you don't like, if because I went the solo route. I'm a producer. I don't design, like I design because I play games and it's in my nature. I went to school for art. I couldn't engineer my way out of making a hello world statement. So I'm mediocre at best at art. So I'm doing it all myself right now with AI help and just kind of frameworking, prototyping. I wouldn't put it out to the public as AI constructed stuff just to put my stance out there
Mhm.
so I'm not lambasted for being AI forward or anything. Uh, but I'm looking at going solo, right, just as like a hobby project, just to learn some more of those skills. And I have like my friend group who I'll be throwing my builds at, and I've been sharing some footage with some of my old coworkers and just being like, okay, I'm building off of this. This is how these are my documents and everything. So I hear you on the point of wanting to work with someone and get that feedback, but it seems like going the solo route in making everything still could be done by someone by themselves as long as they're still getting that kind of user experience feedback, play testing, and showing it off, or taking it to itch.io and putting out an early build and letting people play that. I've heard other studios doing that and using itch as their prototyping tool. How do you feel like that kind of hits the notes of having that collaboration either in the same discipline as you're working in, or just making sure that you're getting a broader worldview of your own creation?
Mhm. Yeah, so this one would be cool to get a link in there too. I mean, if maybe just my itch goes in there is fine, but I made a small project that was meant to be done by myself called Death by Dawn, and it's on there. I made it in RPG Maker, and it was like I did it for a learning experience. And I think solo projects are really good learning experiences. You find like, where are my shortfalls? What can I learn to compensate? And then you also become better at communicating with the people that do those things. Like animating especially. Like I was like, wow, I did not realize how much went into animating. um but yeah, I think that people should do solo projects. I'm definitely not against that. And I think you everybody's different. I'm a very extroverted person, and so like in the way that I recharge by being around other people. And so working by myself is exhausting. And uh I think I did get good perspective. I had friends test, everyone who would test the game test it at different points. And it's a very small like three scene thing, but I got a lot of good feedback, but I never got that feeling, that like collaborative feeling, until I made the mistake of showing it to my voice actor friend, and he said, you have to let me add my voice to this game. And so I told him, no way, I'm done with it. Don't want to do anything more. And so I said, okay, if our other voice actor friend, who she was very busy, Caitlin Burt, she's awesome. I was like, if she can voice act the lead character, then I'll let you voice act, and we'll even get our other friend Alex in. Uh, and so I asked her about it, and then she shocked me and said yes. So, so we set off on a new adventure, and I learned all sorts of things about audio editing and implementation that I didn't know. Uh,
Man, I do have to say, audio is probably the thing that I have put off in all of my designing or considering. I know it serves like an incredible purpose to help communicate, and really connect the dots and some of the feelings that you want. I have enough problems getting audio to work for a podcast, so I'm not looking forward to like tuning and making sure that it feels right with audio. I mean, there's some development horror stories around audio that I'm like, I really I learned, I definitely learned, but I definitely am not looking forward to like, okay, this is where I am the most inexperienced with, and I am kind of terrified of jumping in there. I would rather make shaders than try and figure out audio at this point.
I'm a musician as well, so I feel like I wasn't I'm good with multi-track editors and stuff, so I wasn't too deterred. I realized I shout out one actress, I should say. Alex Scartape was one, he did the narration, and then Justin Cecil. Not only he was the one that told me you got to let me add my voice, but he also taught me a lot of the audio stuff that I needed to do for that. So that was awesome. Couldn't have done it without him. But yeah, so it ultimately ended up collaborative.
Yeah. Now, were they wanting to just voice act it because it would have been like hilarious or fun for them, or was there because you were so resistant to having anyone else in it, and just being like, okay, now we got to do this? What was the inspiration to let them in and do the voice acting, and then how did it turn out?
Yeah, I think he just really enjoyed the story. I mean, he's not a full-time voice actor, but he does it on the side, and so he had the time and he was excited about my project and he liked some of the characters and it was like, oh, I want to I just have voices in my head now for these characters. And yeah, I think it ended up pretty awesome. Uh each of them did several or at least two different parts for it. Uh and um Alex is a fantastic narrator. He's got a really deep voice. Uh it really sets the tone in the beginning. And yeah, Kate's an all-star, so she does films and stuff too. So
So, I mean,
I was excited to have
I
her on. Sorry, what was that?
yeah, I know a lot of AAA studios are almost entirely voice acting now, and so they'll get time in Burbank. They'll get the actors to come into the studio, and they're paid by because they're part of the like voice acting guild mostly. So they're paid by the word, paid by the line, or whatever contract is. And there's a lot if a person has acted a character before, they usually get the right first refusal if they don't have time or can't make it happen again. What were some of the other kind of voice acting experiences that you learned to consider while working with voice actors as a designer?
Um, I think like that was such a like rush to get that done. I think well, I definitely learned the importance of multiple takes because there were so many short things like quips and stuff. I had directed an audiobook before, and so I'm thinking like the differences between those two things. The audiobook, I would get sometimes a whole take, and that was the story, and or they would cut certain pieces together. Um, but with the video game, I would get several takes of each line. At first I wouldn't, but then I learned to get several takes of each line so that I didn't have to go back to them later. And I even spliced some of like three different takes together to make what I wanted so that I didn't have to go, hey, can I actually have you do another take or three more takes? So efficiency and then also, of course, the technical skills to do those things.
Did that change your writing style any, so that as you learned, like you take the multiple takes and then learning kind of notation to go with each line to help convey what you're looking
hmm
for? Like how much more complex did your scripts get based off of that
I
experience?
think in some ways they actually got a little bit simpler. There were lines where it felt like, as someone who's written a novel, I was like, oh, I'm writing prose here, and then hearing it spoken, I'm like, okay, that's too long-winded. Like someone like I tried to make certain things more concise. And yeah, there's definitely there's a lot to be said about the uh that probably people could definitely speak to more than me even, but about how different writing is for something that's going to be spoken versus something that's going to be read.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, as you go forward and between the Baldur's Gate mod, your new startup, any other side projects that you're doing just for fun on your own, would you what is speaking to you most? Would you rather do voice acting and voiceovers with your games, or would you like to go old school and just do the text with the bit as each letter is being printed out?
Yeah, first, it's not my startup, it's um ex Epic people that started it. So uh I'm like just joining in, so I don't want to claim it as mine. But yeah, uh and I would push them to have voice acting. I think I again everybody that does something that I don't do, it's magic. And I actually did get to do a little bit of voice acting for a mod. That was fun. But I uh just I think voice actors are the people that I've like clung to the most. Like we just like get along for whatever reason that it is. And so I always every time I get hired somewhere, I'm like, hey, so what's our voice acting budget? No, like a perfect day, they're like, None. We're not gonna have that in here." But or not yet anyways, someday hopefully. But yeah, I always push to have voice actors. I'm like, hey, if it's in scope, if there's funding for it, I know people that I'd love to work with. I'd love to meet new people. Um, yeah, I think that's a lot of fun. Now, I am going more in my career. I've gone further and further into like again with the characters, more like combat design and like AI enemy or sorry, enemy AI trees, behavior trees, and stuff like that. And so there might be, especially at a AAA studio, less interaction between me and voice actors on a project anyways. So that would obviously I would still advocate for the people that I love to work with to be on a project, but yeah, I wouldn't have um the same experience uh
So,
there.
so it sounds so. As much like now, I'm curious. How do you convince a team? Like, what's your sales pitch for being like, "Hey, we should really get voice acting in"? Like, as a designer, you have to prove the point, prove the value of a feature, and this being part of narrative. And if you're not necessarily a narrative designer, or you are a narrative designer on the team, you're still looking at kind of barking up the writing team's realm and seeing how they want to conduct that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a large cost. You already kind of alluded to that. It is a large cost to bring that up and to support it. So what's your pitch for
I would
bringing
say,
that to the?
yeah, first, very, very like I'm never like I mean, if I thought a game needed it, I would say that. I would be upfront and be like, hey, look, these are the reasons why this game will be better for voice. And I have done that before. Even if I've been shot down, I've said, hey, look, this is other games that we are competing against use voice acting this much in their game. So it would make sense for us to do it in similar ways to properly compete against them. So I would say comparison to other like the demographic that we're trying to sell to um, but I probably and that's I probably would take more of a step back if I'm not involved in the narrative design, then I wouldn't pitch it to the team. I'd bring it up to a narrative designer that I was friends with and I'd say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I think like anything that I don't know about and am not involved in, it's always better to ask questions than to tell someone I think something is the right way uh, to handle it.
I was hoping you would say ask questions.
Yep.
So many there's an eager new junior hire who comes in and they're like, "Here's 20 pages of feedback," and it's like, "I love your enthusiasm. I love that you're invested in all of these different places." But it's also a bit of that touch of we've had those conversations. We've made those decisions and we can't go back for a lot of them. And but it's still viable feedback. It's like sending out a build and getting user experience feedback and being like, if they're all saying you need voice acting, you need voiceovers, like that's a data point you can't ignore. Well, you
Mm.
you can ignore. Maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But data point to bring that decision back to the table. So I can understand that enthusiasm, but I love that answer of go ask questions before going, the world is on fire. You don't have this thing. How could you be making a game like this? I've seen that in a lot of junior designers, junior artists, junior QA coming in and being like, this game's awful. It's not going to work. Well, let's induct you into the culture. Let's induct you into those decision making sessions that have happened and catch you up and why they are that way. So I'm excited to hear you saying ask questions.
Yeah, I think we we probably all go through a phase of that, just that like naive excitement. I was gonna say I've dealt with that with new people coming in and being like, "Hey, this is how things should be done," and it's like, okay, well, there's people that are already putting a lot of time and effort into how things should be done, and uh, in a very thoughtful way. I do think uh, the I on my first project, I was promoted pretty fast because I asked. Like again, I was the narrative designer, and I went into the game designer's territory and I said, "Oh, how does this work? Why is this being done this way?" Like just showing curiosity and building my knowledge. And I didn't answer each thing with, "Oh, well, I don't think that's a good idea." Even if I was confused about something, I'd say, "Oh, well, why? Why do it that way instead of something like this? Like, this is my thought. Can you tell me like what, what am I missing? What's wrong with that?" Even if you wanted to present an idea. But yeah, curiosity is always a great thing.
Yeah, I think I had similar experience being QA and sitting on a game and seeing it from way early in the process as my first game. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have character creation already? What do you mean this level is all gray? Like, what's going on? And just panicking for no reason. I will say I will still hang my hat on this one. This was on Guild Wars 2. It was a couple months before our first closed beta or closed alpha test, probably 6, 8 months before launch, and before the first test, and none of the trees in the entire game had collision. They hadn't turned on collision for the trees because they're like, we know it won't be performant. We don't have any occlusion software or any sort of optimizations really gone in for collision. And they were delaying and delaying and delaying, turning on collision for literally every tree in the game. Every tree. I could test the trees separately and like a test level and be like, okay, this is the 1-to-1 collision, this is the optimized collision, and or no collision, and go, oh my gosh. And when you put it into a public map, there's no collision. Why isn't there collision? I waited for over a year. I had a little champagne popper uh, firework party favor thing. I'm like, do not open until trees have collision.
That's awesome.
For so long, the thing was a dud. Like I pulled the trigger or pulled the pin, and it just like barely spat out. And I'm like, okay, that was anticlimactic, and all of the trees work, and it was completely performant because we got this software. And I'm like, okay, I was panicked for over a year, just being like, we're going to go to test, and our players are just going to kill us. What is this? None of the trees have collision. It was perfect. It worked just fine. I panicked for nothing for a year. So trust the people who are hired for doing a certain thing.
Hmm.
That's my lesson. That's how it was kind of introduced to me through my QA panic of looking around and owning so much. Was all these people were hired for a reason, and just because you weren't in the room, just because you weren't in the studio, they're making decisions with other people. They're doing the
Hmm.
most collaborative project building that's out there. There is reason, they are smart, and you need to trust their mastery of their own discipline.
Hmm.
And that's feedback that I've taken in as a producer, being like, I'm not a designer, I'm not an audio guy, I'm not an engineer. These people know what they need to know and how to do it, and I'm just there to help conduct them because they don't want to conduct things like I do. And so we trust each other in their own discipline skills. So being curious and trusting your other hires, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and people are gonna be wrong sometimes. And I think you have to trust that like everyone is doing their best. No one's trying to ship something that's broken. No one's trying to ship something that is wrong. And so yeah, even just because you could say the odds are, oh, you're gonna be wrong at some point, so listen to me. If they listen to you and they're wrong, it's still their fault because they're in charge of it. And it's like, so yeah, trying to get someone to go against their gut on something when they have the experience and the knowledge and are right more often than they're wrong. Yeah, just be patient and uh, yeah, I agree completely.
Now, we didn't get any questions in chat while we were doing this, but I want to give you an opportunity. You're already dropping some great advice for new hires and lots of inspiration for designers to come in. But what would you tell people who grew up on Among Us and all the friend slop games that are out there that are just hugely fun and
Hmm.
collaborative with friends, or all of the Nathan Drakes, the Tomb Raiders, the big hits, the Dark Souls fans? What would you tell someone getting into design at this point? Because from the NES days where games were a lot more simple,
Hmm.
straightforward, and I wouldn't say one dimensional, but they had a very kind of pure element of execution about what they were. Zelda knew exactly what it was, Mario knew exactly what it was. Now we have live service games that are trying to do everything, and platforms like Roblox and even Fortnite that are doing every genre possible and having communities. What, how do you tell junior designers to get in there and make something fun, make something unique when there is just so much out there that has been refined to a complex level now?
Hmm. I think that trying to make something uh unique, if you have an idea that you think is unique, like go for it. Like I again, definitely not telling you no, but I've seen people sit there and struggle, beating their heads against the desk, thinking I need something unique. I need to come up with something no one's ever done. I think that's a fool's errand. If you don't have the unique idea, just make some more like what you said at first, like make something fun. And I'd say get get with a group of friends, write up a stupid contract that just says, you guys either each retain assets that you create or you share everything equally, whatever, just to avoid hard feelings later on if you do make millions of dollars. Um, uh, and just make something. And again, game jams are like one of the best ways to do that. If you don't have other friends who are interested or passionate enough to sit down and make a game, yeah, go find game jams. Seattle Indies, Global Game Jam, itch.io has uh, hosts lots of game jams. Really can't emphasize that enough. Modding is great. If you love a game, if you're like, no, I want to work at one studio and I'm not going to work in games until I work there. Like, first of all, stick to that. Like, if you're be happy wherever you are until you get there. Don't do that and be miserable. But like, go learn their tools. If they have a modding kit, and those are probably the only ones that you should have that feeling about, but go make mods for their games. I've heard plenty of success stories where people made mods for games until they got hired at that company. It's not, you know, that's definitely, there is no guaranteed path, um but yeah, it's easier to hire people that know your tools already. And then I'd say the biggest piece of advice I could actually give is definitely against that, like, have tunnel vision part is be willing to pivot. I my one of my first mentors in life and creativity told me, give me good advice. Don't do what you don't want to do just because it's similar to the thing that you want to do. Um, because you learn. In fact, two different mentors gave me that. You can learn bad habits. Like if you want to be a novelist and so you become a journalist, you're going to learn to write like a journalist, and then you're going to have to unlearn things like uh, to be able to write prose. Well, but uh, but yeah, being willing to pivot has been like my goal, like my master key in the industry is like I went from narrative design to broader game design, character creation to touch controls, back to character creation, and leaning a lot heavier into combat design. And so, yeah, learn new things, be willing to pivot, do game jams.
Like it. I like it. And I feel like artists, designers, and engineers have a lot easier time finding ways onto game jam teams because they already know a craft. They know how to work together with tools like Godot, like Game Maker, RPG Maker, Unreal, Unity, whatever your team decides to work in. They already have a familiarity and they get to be grouped together and they can figure out how to work together and what they're working towards. What would you suggest for the producers, the QA people, the marketing people who want to get involved but don't necessarily have some of those small team synergies to
Mm.
make something?
Yeah, I was thinking when you were listing off that I'd say if you don't know what to do, offer to do QA. Like if you like to play video games, offer QA and then learn something. Ask people about what they're doing, see if you can help out with anything else when there's time. But yeah, almost everyone I've ever worked with on a side project, game jam, or professionally, we can't get enough people to play the game and give feedback. And so yeah, going into a game jam and just saying, "Hey, can I do QA?" You're gonna get picked up. I'm almost positive of it. Marketing is a tough one. I think producers, you have to find the right team because if you find a team of three people, like I don't know what the producers are really gonna do. Um, but uh, but there are definitely teams uh that do bring on producers, especially if they end up with more people than they thought they were going to at first. That gets really hard to manage without a producer. So most teams could probably thrive from a producer. Um, so again, uh, if you find, I don't know, Seattle Indies is I think open to everybody, not just people in Seattle. But for the Discord, it's a great place to go and just post and say, "Hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm trying to learn. Will anybody have me?" Yeah, marketing. I keep trying to think of that in the back of my head while I'm talking. Um, there are there are game jams that are built around that, and so I would find those game jams. There are game jams that are built around like making a trailer for a game, but not a playable game. And so having marketers on those would be really good. I wish I knew like the place to go look for that. Probably itch.io.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard about game jams, but not for games, but like making trailers for stuff. That's fantastic. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Seattle Indies. I was at their event last night, and I was talking to a creative producer who from Ubisoft, and he's trying to figure out how to get into the game dev side, uh, away from just the marketing and the sales of it all. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I was chatting with him and he was asking, how do I get into the game dev side? So there's some feedback for him.
Yeah. So you're talking about Conspire down at the mocap?
Yep.
Yeah, I was there too. I swear, oh my God, I saw you and I was like, man, he looks familiar. And like, I think we just ended up walking past each other at some point, but oh, that's crazy. Yeah, we were at the same event last night.
Recommend Seattle Indies. Highly recommend. They have an event coming out, I believe September 2nd. It's called Slice. Think of it like a mini GDC, mini PAX, and it's inexpensive to attend, some great panels, some great conversations. If my roundtable gets approved, I'll be talking there. So feel free to join there. Come visit. It's PAX weekend, so you may already be in town, knowing how many people have tickets for that. Uh, Thank you, Joey, for chatting with me and being willing to be on the podcast.
Uh,
Anything you where people can reach out to you, anything like that?
yeah, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. I'm the only Joey Kalitovic on LinkedIn. One of the only ones in the world. Joseph was a family name, so technically there's a few of us, but they're not on LinkedIn. Um, if you have a creative title, I will respond to you on there. And the Corvid Quill is like Corvid, like a bird, is my handle on most stuff. I'm also weirdly Googleable. Um, so if you Google my name or Corvid Quill, my most of my stuff, my itch and stuff will come up.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining me on this conversation. I look forward to hearing more about your future productions, and good luck on your creative endeavors.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
That was Joey Kalitovic. You can find his portfolio, itch.io, and LinkedIn links in the description. This episode's question is, what has another discipline contributed to your work, and what did that create that you would not have done by yourself? Join the Summoning Hour Discord and share your story. And choose another conversation to weigh in on. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel to hear more conversations about game development. Thanks for listening. I'll see you around, whether it's on Riverside, Discord, or on social media. Find all of the links in the description.